How you doing? This is Sam Tolley. Many times when I talk to my friends, particularly my liberal friends, we get into these different discussions about things, and they say, "I never heard that. Where'd you hear that from?" And since we have this different political ideology, many times we have a different theological ideology because I try to base my politics um, as far as my theology goes, and not my theology as far as my politics go. So I thought it might be a good idea to present articles that I've run across that many times my liberal friends don't know, or I think they have such a skewed set of political people they deal with, particularly some of these liberal folks, that sometimes they don't get enough information. But once in a while you'll get something from a liberal site that's insightful. And there was this article. Well, actually, I don't think the article was necessarily from a liberal site, but it's quoting what happened on a liberal site. This MSNBC readout with Joy Reid, and she was talking about, or she was talking to Senator Warnock. Now, this article was dated December the 6th before the runoff election where Senator Warnock defeated Herschel Walker to retain his seat in Georgia. And this session that I'm doing on Know This is about a post Christian America. And nothing says post Christian America to me more than a state that hires a man to be senator that is pretending to be a minister of the gospel. Now, he may really thinks he's one, but he's not. Because the things he stand up for are antithetical to the master he claims he serves. But let's look at some of what was said in this discussion. Like I said, this was dated December 6th. It says Monday on MSNBC's The Readout, Senator Raphael Warnock discussed his opposition to a national abortion ban that has been touted by Lindsey Graham. Well, whether you want a national abortion ban or not is another story. As a Christian, abortion is nothing more than murdering babies in the womb. So I'm for getting rid of all that. Now we have a national ban on murdering humans outside of the womb. Why not a ban on murdering humans in the womb? Well, many of these Democrats try to say that the baby is not a person, which is a lie. Any mother, whether she's Democrat or Republican, know full well that which was inside her, moving and kicking and everything, and that came out of her was another person. It wasn't her body. The Georgia Democrat said his opposition to a ban has gotten pushback from those who think they own the interpretation of the gospel. No one owns the interpretation of the gospel except for God himself. And God made that available to all of us. He reiterated host Joy Reid claimed it was what Jesus would do and reevaluating the obvious bias in healthcare. Now, my question is not what Jesus would do, because that's just stupid, but how is abortion healthcare? Healthcare, I always thought, was something that made you healthier or help prevent you from being ill. It's a twisted world that we live in that we call something that kills healthcare. Reid, this is what she stated, another issue that really drove a lot of people to the polls was the issue of abortion and women's right to have self-determination over our bodies. You know, it's funny. Democrats always talk about self-determination over the bodies, but they wasn't talking about that when they were trying to get everybody to take the COVID shot. Then you're being mean. You hate people. You're going to help people die. You're going to infect folks. You're all this and that. You should do it for the public good, including pregnant women, by the way. This is a state that's got one of the strictest abortion laws in the country. It's one of the hardest states in the United States for women to exercise her rights, really. And this is also a state that's got Tyler Perry and lots of industry and lots of folks coming from out of state to work here in the industry. Well, they get to work in that industry there because the tax breaks are there. It's less expensive to make movies in Georgia than it is in California. Your opponent, Herschel Walker, was one of the few people who was riding in this cycle to stand up and support Lindsey Graham's idea of a national ban on abortion, which is something Republicans very much would like to do. Do you think that that's going to be a fight that you're going to have? Or are we looking at trying to fight a national abortion ban? Ooh, Warnock. Well, I think that's one of the things that's on the ballot tomorrow. So this man that says he's a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ is using the idea that women may have to give up the right of killing their babies in their womb as a tool to help get in votes. But he claims he's for Jesus. And it is. This is Warnock still speaking. Herschel Walker's position on this is extreme. So keeping a baby alive is extreme. I want you to think about these things. He says he wants a national ban, no exceptions. That would include rape, incest, the life of the mother. See, this is stupid. These people always go there. You know, oh, we want to get a ban, you know, even if it's going to kill the mother. I mean, we don't want her to, she has to have she can't have an abortion. Just die. Nobody's ever said that. That's one of the common lies Democrats pull out. As a matter of fact, the idea that a woman would die, but to have birth is very rare. You can have birth. The doctors have plenty of procedures, including, what do they call that thing? I'm sorry, my brain is dead at the minute, where they can take the baby out of the womb. They do it all the time. And this idea about rape and incest, I think rape's not rape necessarily, but incest is maybe less than 0.5% or percent of these births. But nevertheless, say if a woman was raped and say if it was incest and she got pregnant, Democrats are always talking about killing the innocent, killing the child. What does the child have to do with this? If the child is a human being and this child was conceived through evil, let's kill the child. If you just got to kill somebody, they never talk about killing the rapist. They never talk about that. If you want to kill somebody, kill the rapist. That'd be a deterrent for future rapists. They don't talk about that. They always want to kill the baby. They want to kill the innocent. So instead of there being one victim, there's two. I think that's out of step with the women of Georgia, Democrats and Republicans. Well, not all of us. We're not for killing an innocent children. So then there was cheering and applause, according to this article. Warnock. And it's one of the things that's on the ballot. And I get a lot of pushback from people who seem to think that they own the interpretation of the gospel. But I have been studying the scriptures my whole life. I'm committed to the faith. And as a pastor, I have a profound reverence for life. And as a pastor and a person of faith, I have a deep respect for choice. Now, and see, when Democrats say the word choice, it's always pertains to killing a baby in the womb. They don't talk about giving a choice to where your child could go to school because they're beholden to the teachers union. They don't talk about a choice of whether you want to keep your guns or not because they want to get rid of the Second Amendment. But when they say choice, it's not whether you want to keep your baby or lose. It's for the right to kill the unborn child. That's what their choice is. And this man claims to be a pastor. And he's talking about he got a profound, what did he say here? I've been studying the scriptures my whole life. You know, judgment is going to start in the house of the Lord. And those that teach are going to be held to a higher judgment. He should know that. But if he's been studying the word of God all his life, then he's read Psalms 139. And in verse 13 it says, "For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb." 14, "I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth well. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth." You know, Psalms, David's talking about how God made us. God made us. This man who claims he represents God is advocating destroying God's creation and then trying to put God's approval on it. Whoa, to you, Warnock. And I still think, as I have said time and time again, that a patient's room is too small and cramped a space for a woman, her doctor, and the United States government. Really? But the United States government can get in anything else. The United States, I've never seen him one time advocate the United States government not trying to force the COVID mandates on people or all these other mandates on people. It's always in the context of killing the innocent. This is what Democrats live and die and breathe for. But if we care about life, Black women are dying 3 or 4 times the rate of white women in childbirth as a result of childbirth. I think Black women are probably having a higher, Black women will make about Black people are about 13% of the population. So therefore, Black women would be about 6.5, 7% of the population. And we make about 35% of the abortions. So the reverse is true as far as babies in the womb of the Black woman. In New York City, for periods of time, more babies were aborted than born. Most of these abortion mills are located in minority neighborhoods. And the largest abortion provider in the United States is Planned Parenthood, whose founder, Margaret Sanger, said that Black folks was human weeds. And she hired Black ministers to advocate the dastardly deed she wanted to get done. Ministers that were probably like Warnock. So these people sit around there and try to talk about how they care about Black folks, but their solution is to kill more Black folks. And so if you care about life, we ought to find a way. That's a place where government could show up. If you care about life while he's advocating death, wow. Read, yes, Warnock, and the obvious bias in our healthcare system. Read, it's what Jesus would do. Warnock, it is. I think it's exactly what Jesus would do. Read, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, I got to come to your church and check out your service one day. Can I come down? Warnock, come on, absolutely. I've been to the original church that Warnock supposedly represents. And that was the church Martin Luther King used to pastor. Then they built a new one across the street. And I guess that's where Warnock has his services now, if that's what you want to call them. But like I said, we're in a post-Christian America. And Raphael Warnock is a post so-called Christian pastor. Many of my Democrat Christian friends, particularly the black ones, they don't see this stuff. They see, why worship the Lord? I don't believe in all this stuff. And then all Democrats don't believe in all that. And I've never said that all Democrats believe in all that. The problem is the Democrat Party believes in it, endorses it, supports it, and makes sure it's able to happen. And when you give your vote to the Democrat Party, you're giving your vote to a party whose policies are against the God you claim you serve. So you need to understand what's happening. If you want to have God's kingdom move forward, then you need to try to work with his kingdom. You can't have his kingdom move forward working against it. It's crazy. Let's look at this second article. And this one's from Fox News. I believe, I didn't say it. Jeff, the previous one on Warnock was a column from a guy named Jeff Poor. I don't know exactly where he had it. Anyway, this is from Fox News from Andrew Miller, and this is dated December 11th. And it says, Virginia Christian group denied service at restaurant over safety concerns. Amazingly hypocritical. Let's dig into this one. The head of a Christian group, the head of conservative Christian group in Virginia is speaking out after members of her organization were turned away from a restaurant based solely on their religious views. Wow. It's getting to the Bible talks about at the end time when there might come a time we not be able to buy or sell. We might be creeping up on that. In the 1930s, after the Nazis really got a hold of power, and they had the night of broken glass, I believe it was, it got to the point where Jews had to wear stars on their clothes, and they were forbidden from public places by and large, and people wouldn't even buy their products because of their religious beliefs and their ethnic background. Christians in America need to pay attention. These things recycle themselves. Victoria Cobb, president of the nonprofit Christian lobbying organization Family Foundation of Virginia, told Fox News Digital that several members of her group were scheduled to hold a private event at a side room at Metzger Bar and Butchery in Richmond, Virginia, when they received a call an hour and a half before the reservation saying their reservation has been canceled. The reason given for the cancellation, according to Cobb, was that a member of the staff at the restaurant had looked up the organization's website, which states that the group advocates for policies based on biblical principles that enable families to flourish at the state and local level, prompting the wait staff to refuse to serve the group. The Bible says that we're supposed to be light and salt in this dark world. Now, that's what we're supposed to be. Some people get this idea that they're supposed to just keep their head low and don't do anything and don't express their Christianity and their faith. We're supposed to testify. We're supposed to witness the gospel of Jesus Christ to the whole world. That was Jesus' command. How can you do that silently? That's not to say that Christians go out there and act crazy. You're going to go to a restaurant and just start bothering people. Well, these people just want to have a meeting. It's alarming and disgraceful that a restaurant has a religious or political litmus test for who gets in the door, Cobb told Fox News Digital. I think people will find that very disturbing. Well, I find it very disturbing. Mixker's Bar and Butchery acknowledged in a social media post that they had in fact canceled the reservation due to the religious beliefs and political advocacy of the foundation. Mixker's Bar and Butchery has always prided itself on being an inclusive environment for people to dine in, the post said. You know, that's what blows my mind. These liberals always talk about being inclusive. But anytime you hear them talk about being inclusive, that means Christianity's got to go out the way. So that's saying one or two things. Either Christianity is not inclusive, or the inclusivity of Christianity is at the detriment of other beliefs, which it is. I admit it. God of the Bible, he has a standard that he wants us to uphold and stand for and bring light to darkness. The left understands this. In 8 years of service, we have very rarely refused service to anyone who wished to dine with us. Recently, we refused service to a group that booked an event with us after the owners of Mixker found out it was a group of donors to a political organization that seeks to deprive women and LGBTQ persons of their basic human rights in Virginia. What's interesting about that statement is that LGBTQ plus persons want to deny Christians their basic human rights everywhere. You know, I remember back in the day when they were just saying, oh, you know what, we're not going to bother you guys. We're not going to bother your marriage or your family. We just want to be left out the closet. We just want to be able to live our lives. You know, you can live your lives, we live our lives. Well, we let them out the closet. And now they're throwing us in the closet. Now they've got society turned around so much that we are supposed to accept. It's not only tolerate their lifestyle. If we don't accept it, then we're evil. We're getting kicked out of restaurants and bars and stuff because we don't accept it. It's not that tolerance isn't the issue anymore. We must accept it. The Post added that the restaurant has always refused service to anyone for making our staff uncomfortable, which was the driving force behind the decision. Many of our staff are women and are members of the LGBTQ community. All of our staff are people with rights who deserve dignity and a safe work environment. So Christians don't deserve dignity. And when have Christians have been about a lifestyle of undignified and unsafe work? We respect our staff's established rights as humans and strive to create a work environment where they can do their jobs with dignity, comfort, and safety. Cobb told Fox Digital her group firmly believes in treating everyone with respect and took issue with the explanation provided by the restaurant. Well, of course, that's ridiculous. See, these people, the Jesus they love is the Jesus of love, loves everybody, accepts everything, doesn't bother nobody, doesn't have any problems with anything. That's the Jesus they want us. They want this Jesus of love, but not of justice. This Jesus that doesn't believe in morality and right and wrong. It doesn't set parameters for people's lives. They want us to believe part of the Bible, but not the whole counsel of God. If you're a Christian, you don't have that choice. Now, if you're a CINO, a Christian in name only, you can believe anything you want. You can half believe, whatever. Let's continue. Excuse me. So the restaurant took heat after refusing to serve a Christian organization. It says it's so amazingly hypocritical to pride yourself on creating an exclusive environment and announce that in order to defend how you exclude people from your restaurant. Yeah, you got an exclusive environment, but not you guys. Cobb said that if her group had been allowed to eat at the restaurant, the waiting staff would have encountered a group of very kind people who treated them well and would have tipped them well. And I believe in tipping well. I believe in tipping everybody, you know. Now, I don't go crazy. I mean, I like tip 15%. I'm not going to, and that's well to me. Some people tip 10, some people hit 20, 25. You do what you want to do. That's your business. But I don't believe in, even if I don't like the service, sending a penny or writing something stupid. I don't do that. And I believe in treating everybody with respect and dignity wherever I go. But that's the only right. That's only right. Virginia's discrimination have clear. This is the way it's written. Virginia's discrimination laws do have clear. Well, it could be. Excuse me. It could be very clear violation of religious discrimination. Cobb said. Maybe the writer got it mixed up here, because that's what you find on our website. That all of our viewpoints are directly and intentionally taken from biblical admonitions, and that's where a faith-based organization, and that we're a faith-based organization. Since the incident went public, the Family Foundation says they have been inundated with hateful messages, dozens of which were obtained by Fox Digital. So now that these people express how they were treated by this restaurant, now they're getting crap. F you, F your religion. One message with the subject line, kill yourself, stated, every single one of you should face retribution. Another message referred to the group as Bible-toting freaks and used the phrase, hail Satan. Cobb says she has not received any communication from the restaurant since the incident and would be happy to chat with ownership anytime about the situation. Fox News Digital reached out to Mexican Bar and Butchery, and the establishment declined to comment beyond their social media explanation. There's enough Christians here in America to shut down businesses if folks don't want to treat us right. And I'm not advocating shutting people down, but I'm not advocating being insulted. And, when it comes down to money, we all use the same currency. And I don't believe in spending my money someplace where it's not welcome. So if I was a Christian and I was out there in Virginia, or wherever the heck this place is, it's in Virginia someplace, I wouldn't have anything to do with Metzger's Bar and Butchery. I would let Metzger's Bar and Butchery know exactly, as a Christian, whether I'm with a group or an organization or not, thank you, but no thank you. You go ahead and serve your people, the ones that make you feel comfortable. And I hope that they take care of your financial needs in that community. I will spend my money at restaurants that don't have that bias, or their employees don't control who the customers are because of their religious and theological points of view. This is a post-Christian America, people. This thing is only getting worse. And it's not just in view of the politicians that we're electing. It's not just in view of the treatment, going to restaurants. It's even post-Christian in view of folks when they go to jail because of this weird woke mindset where you can believe that you're a woman, even if you're a man, or you're a man, even if you're a woman, and all this other kind of demonic garbage that has just taken over this country. It's not even safe in certain sections of prison. People that are being incarcerated because of crimes they've committed to even be halfway safe. Now, prison has never really been a real safe place, but now there's a new level of stupid they have to deal with. So my last article I want to share with you is from the Christian Post. And this article is entitled, "It's the Most Helpless Feeling. Women Forced to Live Behind Bars with Male Rapists Speak Out." Isn't that something? This is an article by Brandon Showalter. It says, when America first learned that male prisoners convicted of violent sexual assault, rape, and murder are being housed with women, they're shocked. Under the banner of gender identity, men who are criminals but self-identify as females are not allowed to request a transfer to women's prisons. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. When all this stuff came out about identifying as a boy or a girl, and they're letting these males in these girls' locker rooms in high schools, at that time of my life, I said, you know what? I'd have gotten all kind of trouble. I said, yeah, I identify as a girl because I want to be on the girls' volleyball team, the girls' basketball team, the girls' soccer. I want to be with the girls, and it wasn't. And my ideology had nothing to do with me identifying as a female. My thought process was just being in there with a bunch of naked girls because I was of a carnal mindset. And I saw that as a perfect opportunity to get someplace that I would never be allowed to go. And that's exactly what it looks like we're talking about here. Under the banner of gender identity, men who are hardened criminals but self-identify as women are not allowed to request a transfer to women's prisons. This is happening in states across the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. Even before transgender ideology was codified in the law. Anyway. Men who identify as women are being placed in women's jails. I mean, this is madness. In the Christian Post documentary style investigative podcast series, Generation Indoctrination Inside the Transgender Battle, Amy Akakawa, who once was incarcerated and now leads a nonprofit organization, Women to Women, revealed that when she called home to tell her mother that she was locked up with men, they couldn't believe it. It's the most helpless feeling I've had to date, Akakawa recalled of her time in prison at the Central California Women's Facility, Central California, which is colloquially known as Chowchilla Prison. Just to know that you have absolutely no control of your environment, your own physical well-being, your mental health, nothing. And there's really no one you can talk to it about. It's so unbelievable that I would call home every day crying for weeks, trying to explain to my family that there was a serial rapist housing. God, this is unbelievable. A serial rapist, a man who went to prison for serially raping women all over the place. So what do? They put him in the candy store. They give him exactly what he wants. More women. We have lost our minds in this country. And that is legal. That the state really did it, she continued. My family thought I was delusional. See, they couldn't even believe this. They said, are you? Gosh, she recalls. And that just adds to the helplessness, the feeling of utter vulnerability. See, when people get so used to the government as being legitimate, it's hard for them to reconcile that the government could have lost its mind. And you're subject to this government that then lost its mind. Because people just trust the government. And a lot of people really don't understand. That's why the Second Amendment was put in place. If the government loses its mind, the only the final recourse of the people is to get rid of the government. And the founders realized that you will never get rid of the government if they have power over you. And power over you is the gun. So these countries that have gotten their citizens to get rid of their Second Amendment rights are countries that the citizens they have nothing to fight back with if they decide to. If our government completely loses its mind, the founders gave us a trigger. They gave us a way out. It wouldn't be easy, but it's a way out. Okay. It's just like you're emotionally naked, and it creates this cloud of hopelessness that sits over the entire prison. The whole population is on pins and needles, and it creates more tension. While the first 5 installments of Christian Post podcast series focus on how children are being indoctrinated into claiming transgender identities in schools, and rising numbers of them are being sent down a pathway of experimental medicalization. I might need to look at that. And body mutilation. The plight of prisoners is germane to the broad debate over gender ideology in all facets of society. Laws and regulations are increasingly being changed in regard to prisons amid the increased transgender identification. Aikakawa recalled how the experimental use of cross-sex hormones are only being pushed on children, but often, but on oft-forgotten population female prisoners. Aikakawa reports that synthetic testosterone, which is called a hot dog, is being distributed in medical lines at prison clinics and pushed on women with a more masculine appearance. So they're giving these women synthetic testosterone. I mean, what are they doing? They're trying to increase this Brittany Griner look or something? Wow. The so-called hot dog must be administered by prison clinic staff, whereas their trans identity male counterparts who are on estrogen, a cold drug, can take it in their rooms. Anyone who is even remotely masculine with a low ponytail or anything is asked if they want to get testosterone. She said, and the process of going on the cross-sex hormone is quick. And it's much more accessible than anything else. Much easier than getting a mammogram or an x-ray for a broken bone. You got to be kidding. So you can get you some kind of cross-sexual drug thing in prison quicker than a mammogram or get your bones fixed. Sounds like these folks are using prisons as an experiment for Dr. Frankenstein. Aikakawa further recounted that some women have even told her that they wanted to take testosterone so that they can grow stronger, protect themselves from the men inside the prison walls and survive. So now you got women that want to take the testosterone, not because they think they're a dude, because they got to fight dudes in the cells with them. to keep the dudes off of them. Christian Post emailed 2 officials of the California Department of Corrections, specifically inquiring about the accessibility of cross-sex hormones and the medical protocols within prison clinics that Ikakawa described. The reporter also asked about the safety of women who are locked up with men and how many men are expected to be approved to transfer in the weeks and months ahead. Christian Post questions went unanswered. Internationally recognized human rights found in the Geneva Convention states explicitly that female prisoners of war must be housed separately from men. Yet, with the incursion of gender ideology in public policy, that long-held standard does not apply domestically. Here we are in the United States. We got this Geneva Convention where it says that in war, separate men from women. But this post-Christian America will put men in women's prisons. Can you imagine that? If your daughter got in trouble and she ended up in jail, now not only did she have to worry about fighting off some crazy woman that might be in prison, but some dude. When we're wondering or praying to God that our daughters and sisters and wives and stuff don't get assaulted on the streets of America, we're locking men up with them in the prisons of America. Oh man, let's go. Yet, let's see, blah blah blah. Let's go back. Yet, with the inclusion of gender ideology in public policy, that long-held standard does not apply domestically. Meanwhile, purportedly prominent international government entities and purportedly mainstream human rights groups are not only silent regarding women being housed with men in Western countries, but push the ideology that created these problems. The reason there isn't an outcry from the human rights community is that they have largely been captured by this ideology, which is not just accepted at international entities like the United Nations, but promoted by them. They have designated an independent expert on sexual orientation and gender identity, said Amanda Stuhlman, who represents the U.S. chapter of Keep Prison Single Sex. A UK-based organization advocates for the sex-based rights of incarcerated women. These people are always talking about, well, we want to make women equal with men. We want to make it better for women. And what happened when the Biden administration came in? They started talking about having pregnant flight suits and lowering the standards for special forces to put women in there. And of course, let's throw some dudes in jail with women. And, you know, we have these dudes in colleges that are swimming. They're with women, you know, breaking all the records, or weightlifting, breaking all the records, or a track breaking all the records. Because we want to make life better for women. And all these entities, they're pretty much involved with the Democrat Party. And they love to claim that they're for the women. How are they for women? They advocate killing babies in the womb. 50% are women. They advocate this gender identity nonsense that always benefits men over women. And even now, the fact women in prison can't even be safe. So how in the heck are these people for women? Please explain that to me. Okay, Stuhlman, who is a New York-based attorney but does not function in that capacity in her advocacy role for the KPSS, that is the Keep Prisons Single Sex, went on to explain that there's no helping help coming from international human rights organizations, which, like the UN, promote self-declared gender identities over biological reality and sex. So the UN and all these human rights groups, what you believe is what it is. What it is ain't necessarily what you believe. In reality, who gives a rat's butt? This is a violation of the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution. This is in conflict with United Nations' own standards of minimum rules for prisons, which are known as the Mandela Fellow Rules. It's in violation of the Geneva Conventions, which don't apply in a non-war dynamic, but were the guiding principles for this portion of the Mandela Rules, Stuman said. Aside from the legal framework, it's just absolute common sense that prisons remain sex specific, she added. In California, Senate Bill 132, California, my home state, beautiful state, completely nuts politically, morally upside down, in California, Senate Bill 132, which was signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2020, explicitly allows anyone on the basis of their gender identity to transfer into the prisons if they so desire, meaning men who claim to be women could more easily enter a facility like CCWF where Ikakawa served time. Yet, even before laws and regulations changed to incorporate gender identity, often stealthily, that was largely hidden from the public via administrative processes, men have been allowed to be housed with women on a case-by-case basis. Stuman recounts to Christian Post that the first known case that she was aware of was Richard Masbroch, and the stated reason given that he could be housed in the women's prison was because he didn't have an intact penis, because he had tried to burn it off with acid after completing his crime. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. His crime was that he held hostage a woman and her mother, and he raped and sodomized the daughter, and he applied electroshocks to them, Stuman explained. That man who committed that crime on the mere basis of not having a fully functioning penis was allowed to transfer into a woman's prison in California even before SB 132. Ooh, man. In Canada, a notable legislative change happened in 2017 when gender identity and gender expression were added to categories of personhood to the National Human Rights Act and the Criminal Code with the passage of Bill C-16. As an eventual result of that policy change and subsequent revisions to various regulations, male prisoners could claim to have a female gender identity and request to be housed with women instead of men in Canadian prisons. One man who did just that was Michael Williams, who in 2005 murdered 13-year-old Nina Louise Courtpat on a golf course in Edmonton, Alberta. Williams was convicted of his crimes but began identifying as a woman and was granted a transfer to a woman's prison. So this joker kills a little girl. And then he identifies as a woman and gets transferred to a woman's prison. See, in the United States, somebody did something like that. You put his butt in prison. You have to put him in solitary confinement. Because if he went into the general population with the men, ball game over. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. The Fraser Valley Women's Institute in Abbotsford, British Columbia. That's where this guy was transferred. Sources inside the prison told the Toronto Sun that because Williams wanted to maintain an erection, he only took testosterone 2 weeks a month. You can't make this stuff up. This dude murders a little girl. He identifies as a woman, but he wants to be able to, keep his strength up, as it were. So he only took estrogen 2 times a month. According to Heather Matson, an advocate for incarcerated women with the prison walls, Williams was known for maladaptive behavior and was ordered to be sent back to a men's prison. His recent request to be transferred back to the women's prison have been denied. What is maladaptive behavior? Some who understood the threat that men might pose to women in prison argue that only those who have undergone surgeries to remove their genitals should be allowed to live among incarcerated women. Mason is not persuaded by that argument in light of the case she knows about and a number of ways in which men have assaulted women. No, I don't think they need to be. You know what? If this is a dude that cut his jewels off, this is a dude no jewels. He still needs to be in a prison with dudes. Sexual predators don't just stop being sexual predators once you cut their penis off, she insisted, citing Matthew Madeline Harks, a pedophile who was convicted on 2 counts of abusing 2 children, but has reportedly abused dozens of minors. Even though he had undergone surgery, he still managed to sexually assault an Indigenous woman in the bathroom of Grand Valley Institution in Connecticut, Ontario, where Masson was once incarcerated on drug-related charges. He got sent back to prison for making inappropriate comments and sexually harassing one of my friends in a halfway house. Everywhere he goes, he has victims, and he likes to go after women who are small and childlike. Or he goes after women who are developmentally delayed, Mason said. Wow. He's still an issue, and you don't need a penis to hurt these women. There are others objects. There are his hands. There's his mouth. All surgery does is remove the possibility of pregnancy after rape, she added. Among other indignities that women prisoners have reported to her via a survey she conducted is that a male prisoner who exposed himself to several women and sexually assaulted women. He also reportedly threw urine and feces at women who were in a different residential unit. Some of the women have reportedly taken to putting rocks in their socks so they can beat the men away with force. Well, you got to get, I guess, to get to go out there and exercise. And now, you figure out a weapon. You can't get a shank, a gun, or whatever. So you get some rocks and put them in your socks. And when sucker come at you, you go at him. Wow. In November of last year, the Women's Liberation Front, a radical feminist group, filed a lawsuit on behalf of 4 incarcerated women challenging a California law that allows men who claim to be women or non-binary, I guess you can go either way, to be housed in women's correctional facilities. Their multi-pronged case includes the argument that the law is not constitutional and violates the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution because because the policy subjects incarcerated women to known substantial risk of physical and sexual violence. Of course it does. I mean, this is stupid. I have to look it up real quick. The eighth consonant of the eighth article of the Constitution. Hold on a second. It says, Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime, whereas a party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2, Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Well, there ain't nothing in there that's talking about putting a man in jail with a woman. Okay. Including the consequences such as pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. Wolf argues that that is the acronym for Women's Liberation Front, argues this is a form of cruel and unusual punishment. Presently, according to Wolf, over 300 men have applied to transfer into women's prisons. I can see that. I'm surprised not more. And dozens have already been transferred. The remaining requests are pending and more are likely to be approved, both in the state of California and the American Civil Liberties Union continue to seek dismissal of the case. In July, the presiding judge issued an order denying 2 motions to leave. However, due to delays related to the COVID-19 pandemic backlog, the case is still making its way through the system. Like I said, folks, we're in a post-Christian America. It's post-Christian for folks that are on the streets, and it's post-Christian for folks that are incarcerated. I mean, so a serial rapist, some joker you want to get off the street because he's raping a bunch of women, he's like a kid put in a candy store. Okay, lock me up with a bunch of women. Yeah. Folks, it's time to be light and salt in this dark world. It's time for Christians to wake up and understand what we're dealing with. We can't be like this joker here in this Christian bubble. You see, the world's going to hell in a handbasket all around him, but he's acting like nothing's happening because nothing's happening to him. Well, if we're going to be light and salt, we must speak out for those that are hurting, those that are mistreated. We must stand up for the faith. We must remember, we can't elect folks like Warnock, to represent us, and we call ourselves Christians. And if there's businesses that don't want to serve us because we're Christians, then we don't want to give them our money. We need to stand up for the things of God, stand up for the people of God, and start doing what's right. So this is Sam Tolley. Until the next time, those things you need to know. You need to know this, what we just spoke about, and there's many more things you need to know about. I'm out.